Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with real aioli. That's right, there's a very good chance you've never had a real aioli. But don't feel bad, probably 99% of the public hasn't either. And that's because what you've been eating is actually a garlic mayonnaise. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Those are delicious too. But if mayonnaise or even an egg was used as the base, it isn't a real aioli, which is simply an emulsification of garlic and oil. And to say there's a difference in taste is like the understatement of the century. So let's go ahead and get started. And to make a real aioli, we only need 4 ingredients. Some fresh garlic, of course, some olive oil, some salt, and a little bit of lemon. And believe it or not, that is it. Although what I'm about to show you next, some people consider the 5th and most important ingredient, our mortar and pestle. As this ancient tool really is the key here. And I have 2 different kinds, one made from olive wood and one made from marble. And they both really work exactly the same, so it's just a personal preference. And for today's performance, I will be using the wood one. And our first step here is going to be to crush our garlic with a little bit of salt in that mortar. And to make that go a little quicker, and so our cloves don't fly out of there as we start, we're going to take a knife and give those already peeled cloves a little slicing. All right, don't worry about size and shape. This is all going to get smashed. But I do find it very helpful if we break this down a little bit before it goes in there. And by the way, I should have showed peeling this garlic because I never ever want you to buy pre-peeled garlic in the store. Do not be seduced by its convenience. So peel your garlic fresh. And then what we'll do once our garlic is sliced is go ahead and transfer that into the mortar. And we'll add about a half a teaspoon of kosher salt or some other coarse grain salt. And we basically want to mash this down to a fine paste. And besides seasoning our aioli, that coarse salt is also helping the grinding process. So we will continue to work that over, crushing and smashing, mushing and mashing, until, like I say, we have a fairly smooth paste. Okay, you can see there's going to be a little bit of texture still left to it. But if you don't grind it at least as fine, emulsifying the oil is a little harder. So that's looking good right there. And what we'll do at this point is introduce about a teaspoon or so of freshly squeezed lemon juice. Okay, no pits, please. Those aren't good eats. So be careful. So I'm going to squeeze in about a teaspoon, and then we'll give that a quick mix until it's combined. And by the way, if for whatever reason you don't have access to fresh lemon juice, you can definitely substitute with the vinegar of your choice. It's going to serve the same purpose. So we'll go ahead and stir in our freshly squeezed lemon juice. And once that's been accomplished, we have taken care of 3 of our 4 ingredients, which brings us to the olive oil. And one big tip here as we start this last step, we want to introduce this very slowly. So we'll just start by spooning in about a teaspoon or so. And we won't add any more until that's mixed in, which is just going to take a few seconds, but don't be in a big hurry. We will stir and smash that oil into our garlic mixture until we have something that sort of looks like this, at which point we can go ahead and add another spoon, and basically repeat that process until the oil's gone. So just like if we were making a salad dressing or a hollandaise or a mayonnaise, we want to go slow at the beginning until our emulsification forms, and then maybe we'll get a little more aggressive. And as far as the appearance goes, don't worry too much about how it looks at the beginning. It's going to resemble sort of an applesauce when you start. But as more and more of that olive oil gets emulsified, it's going to really thicken up until eventually we achieve something that looks pretty close to a mayonnaise. And classically, this entire process is done right in the mortar. But if you are feeling a little claustrophobic and you want to transfer this into a mixing bowl and do this step with a whisk, that will also work. It might even be a little easier. But I think the advantage of doing everything in the mortar is that while we're working that oil in, we're also continuing to crush the garlic. And it's the pulverization and crushing of those cells in the garlic which gives us that signature taste you really can't recreate using any other method. Not to mention, who needs to clean another bowl? So we'll continue stirring and smashing that olive oil into our garlic mixture. And as you can probably see, it's definitely getting thicker. And if at any point it looks like it's getting a little too thick, and you want to just smooth it out a little, just drip in a little bit of water. Or lemon juice. Either one will work, but be careful with the lemon juice, because we're not making a lemon sauce here. So for me, the water's a little safer. But anyway, to recap, we'll continue on adding the olive oil and observing. And as I mentioned, once that emulsification forms, you can add it a little quicker. This really is surprisingly stable and fairly hard to break. And by break, I mean the oil will separate from the garlic mixture. But anyway, we're going to continue on. And once all our olive oil has been introduced, if everything's gone according to plan, you should be looking at something very similar to this. Now, one optional step if you're crazy. If you wanted this super smooth, you could go ahead and pass this through a fine mesh strainer. But I've never done that. I kind of enjoy seeing all those little particles of crushed garlic. But suit yourself. You are the boss of the world's most famous primitive sauce. But I've never strained mine, and I probably never will. But what I will do is transfer this in some kind of clear glass dish so I can take a few pictures. And that's it. Our real, pure, true aioli is done. And if you've never had this before, and you've only had the garlic mayonnaise they call aioli, you are in for a pretty big shock. A good analogy would be if you only drink watered-down American beer, and then someone hands you like a world-class Belgian ale, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I like this. This has, what's the word? Flavor. So it is kind of staggering, but wonderfully so. And please don't judge it just on your finger. It's meant to be eaten on things. So if you're going to adjust your salt or acid, go ahead and taste it on a piece of bread, or maybe a lettuce leaf will work. And then once you're happy with it, and you've convinced yourself you could handle the immense pleasure it's going to provide you, it's ready to enjoy on so many different things. And let me quickly show you two of my favorites. Let's say you did a nice pan-fried steak, and you deglaze that pan and pour it over the juices. Man, that would be good just like that. But when you top it with a spoon of that real aioli, and maybe a little bit of fresh herb, you're talking about elevating that steak to otherworldly levels. I mean, just unbelievable. So using this to finish any and all meat dishes is highly recommended. Or instead, if you're one of these vegetarians I've heard about, it does not get much better than a steamed or roasted artichoke topped with copious amounts of real aioli. That is a classic for a reason. I could eat 2 of those, and I actually did as soon as I turned off the camera. But anyway, that's it. How to make real aioli. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with garlic mayonnaise, except that it's not this. And will you actually like this better than that? I have no idea. But there's only one way to find out. So I really do hope you give this a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.